All right, everyone, we are going to get started. I see some folks are already putting in the chat name and organization, so feel free to follow suit. But good morning, everyone, and thank you all for joining us. We're glad to be with you today as we walk through the Reimagine and Revitalize opportunity for New Haven, East Haven, and West Haven region. Today, our goal is to make sure that you all leave with a clear understanding of what this opportunity is, the application requirements, and what to expect if you're funded. And let's see. Our agenda for today, we're going to start with a brief overview of United Way and the R2 program, and then we'll walk through eligibility, application requirements, timeline. We'll review some post-award expectations, and then we'll have some time for questions and answers. So I know many of the questions that you all are going to have, please note them. Feel free to drop them in the chat because it will likely be answered, hopefully be answered during this presentation. And if not, you will have time to get those answers at the end of this presentation. And then you can always email the email address that's the secr2@uwgnh.org email address. And we want to make sure that everyone that's on this call and others that couldn't make it are able to get those answers. So again, please feel free to drop them in the chat or hold them until the question and answer portion of this presentation. So today you'll hear from three of us. I am Shelley Hicks, Vice President of Education here at United Way of Greater New Haven. We have Kelly Fitzgerald, our Vice President of Financial Security, and we also have Megan Neely, our Operations Manager. And together we are going to present all of this information for you, and we will also be available afterwards throughout the process to support you through application and after funding, hopefully. So before we jump into the application and the mechanics of that, I want to ground us in the purpose of this opportunity and how it fits into the broader work of the council and our work at United Way. So here at United Way, our work is really rooted in creating conditions for long-term community well-being. And that makes this opportunity especially important to us because it's not just about funding programs, it's about helping strengthen communities and expanding opportunity for all. So we're approaching this as a partnership. If you are awarded, the expectation is that you'll be accountable for strong implementation and reporting, but will also engage with us as the grant manager in supporting this work. So the council's R2 program is a program that is, excuse me, it is, my screen just went black. Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You want me to jump in, Shel?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, technology is never my favorite. So we are going to move forward. So piece of what Shelley was speaking to around the R2 program. So the council's program is funded through the licensing fees and revenues that's generated from Connecticut's adult use cannabis market. And it's dedicated to social equity initiatives. The funds are administered by the council to support community reinvestment, workforce development, and technical assistance, along with some other initiatives that are consistent with the purposes of the council. This is the competitive grant that is administered by the selected grant managers. There are different grant managers for each community. United Way of Greater New Haven was selected for East Haven, New Haven, and West Haven. And really the idea is to support communities that were disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. And this program will provide funding to eligible organizations to implement projects that are focused on that long-term community revitalization for those three communities. So going a little bit deeper into the program priorities, and this is all in the NOFO, but we just wanted to make sure that everyone's leaving with a shared understanding. The first is economic development. Economic development under this grant is intended to ignite economic growth by enhancing access to vital resources and capital that improve wages and drive economic development. Under this does include shovel-ready projects that we'll go into a little bit more detail, but some examples under this topic. This is not an exhaustive list, but just to kind of get everyone's wheels spinning a little bit, could include job training, access to employment, workforce development, as well as repair and limited renovations to properties where programs are happening. The second priority area is reentry initiatives. So reentry, this is for justice impacted adults and youth to support the transition back into the communities, focusing on reducing recidivism and promoting social reintegration. Again, not an exhaustive list, but could include employment, legal, housing assistance, social support, mental health services, education, and vocational training. I think Shelley's back. Shelley, I'm going to punt it back to you for the youth initiatives priority.
Thank you. Thanks.
Great.
Thanks for jumping in. So
Yeah.
sorry about that, everyone. But another one of our priorities is, as you see, youth initiatives. And this category is intended to support programming that will provide educational or social opportunities, mentorship, or other resources that help children and youth thrive both academically and socially, and also support a positive future. And some examples could include things like education and academic support, mental health support, life skill training, leadership development, internships, youth entrepreneurship. And I just want to note that the strongest applications will be clear about youth outcomes and how they'll track progress over time. And with that, I will turn it back over to you, Kelly.
Yeah, and one of the things I just want to like pause for a minute as we just kind of briefly went through those three priority areas is they really support the council's belief that you are all the experts in what the right or most impactful programming and tools and resources, right? And so this is meant to give you kind of a general frame of
Right.
what the council is thinking around these, but really leaning on you all to recommend any kind of activity under one of these categories. So this is unique. I know that many of you have received grants from United Way in the past, so wanting to kind of go through this a little bit more deeply. So within the grant, funding will be assigned by tier, and those tiers are already predefined, as well as the number of grants per tier. And so you'll see here kind of it is different. You'll see the economic development, the kind of bottom is the 35,000 for tier 1 compared to reentry and youth initiatives. Tier 1 start is at 25,000. Again, these are 3-year grant periods. So if applied and received, there is an initial 3-year commitment. Of course, I'll put the caveat of, we'll talk about this. There'll be reports, there'll be site visits, and contracts will include language that, gives the right that if anything is changing drastically, that the 3 years are really contingent on the fact that you are doing the work that you were approved for. But so, and we'll get into this a little bit more too, but tied to the tiers, you do have to pick which tier you are applying for. And there is a question in the application tied to your experience managing grants in those tiers. And so if you are a smaller nonprofit that maybe has not had a grant in the amount of $100,000 per year, you absolutely could apply for that and make a case for why you feel that your agency is ready at this point. But it may also be something you'd want to consider applying for, something closer to tier 2 or tier 3, where you are able to demonstrate the organizational capacity to manage a grant of that size.
Folks, I just want to pause this here for a second. Someone had noted in the chat they're having trouble hearing with some background noise. Just wanted to see if anyone else is having that same issue. Maybe adjust some of the audio.
I'm not hearing background noise.
Me either.
All right, a couple confirmations that it might just be one.
Okay. Thank you, Megan. We absolutely, the goal is that everyone hears and leaves this session feeling as informed as possible. So if you can't hear us, we can always do a follow-up with you after. Okay, so let's jump into eligibility and application requirements. Kind of the biggest question, like, am I eligible to apply for this? So organizational eligibility, kind of 3 key pieces: that you are a nonprofit CBO with 3 or more years of experience providing programs aligned with 1 or more of the program priorities, that you are an entity registered with the Secretary of State of Connecticut, and that you are a nonprofit located in and serving residents from one of the designated regions. Again, for us, is East Haven, West Haven, New Haven. Program eligibility. Eligible organizations may only submit 1 application per region. Just want to make sure that's clear, and that your programs must align with at least one of the priority areas that we indicate. Some people have, we've already heard questions, or there's been some FAQs around, like, what if my project covers multiple, right? Like, what if it's a youth program for justice involved youth, or it's youth, but it's workforce development. And the guidance on that is that you should be selecting which area really ties to, like, your core mission and outcome for that program. So kind of think about, what are you measuring? And then that should help you align with which one you want to be applying for. So the program must have 3 or the agency has to have 3 or more years of experience providing programs in the area. If the program is newer, like, you have to at least demonstrate how the agency has 3+ years of experience in that priority area. So again, if you are part of an agency that's been doing work and but you have a program that's only a year old, but you're really excited about it, you can still apply for that as long as your agency has been doing the work for 3+ years. In terms of the population, you also have to be willing to certify that your program serves at least 90% of residents from the 3 towns identified. And this, lots of discussion happened with Social Equity Council around this. And I think that there was some, like, no, it needs to be 100%, but really leaning towards that 90, because we know that some people find their way, right, like, to a program, and we don't want you all to be held to such a strict, it has to be 100%, and you have to document that, and you have to prove that to us. So that 90% minimum gives you a little bit of wiggle room in your program. And again, the program must have a physical footprint in one of the 3 towns. The agency applying may have a headquarter that's located somewhere else, but the program has to be located in one of the 3 towns, and the person applying has to have some level of control over that space. You may be co-located somewhere else, but you then would need to be able to have an MOU or some sort of agreement that agency is saying, yes, United Way is running a program in this location. They have access to it on these days, right? So you need to be able to demonstrate that. So supporting documents that you would need in order to be eligible, you need to have 2 years of audited, prepared financial statements. an org chart and board advisory committee list. Again, that proof that you're registered with the state of Connecticut. Resumes for key personnel. 2 letters of support. And the signed statement of assurances and conflict of interest. Last but not least, a budget with your narrative to make sure people's noted this from the NOFO is that you cannot include a flat rate admin rate. So if generally you have a federal rate of 7.5 or 12, whatever that is, you cannot do that. You are able to, in your budget, like itemize a cost that would usually fall under your admin, and then that total cannot exceed 10% of the total award. Okay.
All right, everyone. Good morning. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the application platform and process. And I do apologize if you can hear a little bit of background noise. Our office is very lively today. So first and foremost, I'm sure many of you have already done this, but if you have not, make sure to navigate to United Way of Greater New Haven's website. So I have popped the link on the screen. But it is uwgnh.org/reimagine-and-revitalize. And that page has a wealth of information, including FAQs. It has all of the addendums and the notice of funding, or NOFO, as well as the application questions themselves. So after you've navigated to that page, you've read all of the different portions and pieces that are up there for you to take a look at, you would then draft your responses by downloading the application questions document, which again is on our R2 webpage. And that is there for you to have those questions in advance, so you don't need to navigate through the online form. And of course, as a backup, it's really important that you have at least a second copy of your responses, because when you submit in that online form, in the event of any technical issues, the last thing we want is for you all to lose your application. An important note, especially on that, is that there is not an extension period allowed for this opportunity. So we really want to make sure that all of the hard work that you are all putting into this application gets to see it to fruition. So after you download that document, draft your responses, you'll also download addendum number 4. So that is the required submission attachments and templates, which is also on that web page. Applicants are required to download, update, and submit those documents as part of their complete application. So of course, take a look at all of the addendums, but that one in particular has the uploadable documents that you will need. And then finally, last but not least, when you are ready to submit, you will input your responses via our online grant platform, which is called IntelliStack, formerly FormStack. So if you see either of those two names, it is the same platform. The link to that is, of course, also on that main webpage. Something I want to note especially about this is that while it does have a save and submit function, so you can toggle between the questions as well as save your responses for later, we again do encourage you to draft those separately just in the event of any technical issues, but wanted to make sure you all know that that is available to you. A final caveat on that save and submit function is that we ask that you please assign one person to admit those final, input those final responses. Because if there are too many links being populated, the system does get confused, and sometimes that can prompt a technical issue. So one person submitting through the online platform, and you should be good. There's no login, account creation necessary, just submitting your responses. Okay. And then I will just briefly go over a really high-level timeline. So of course, today is June 16th and is our information session, which we are recording, and we'll email the link to you following. This Friday, we are asking that you submit all questions related to the application, just so we can make sure that if we need to, we can check in with the council and get back to you as quickly as possible to assist in that application process. And then, of course, the final application is due July 15th by 5 p.m. One final note that I want to make here for you is that the system does automatically close at 5 p.m. So if you are kind of mad dash to the end, which I completely understand, it is grant season. So just note that it is best to do it as far in advance as possible because it might close, especially if your clock is on a different timeline, and then the responses are not partially saved. So I will not be able to access that on the back end. Following that, so following July 15th, the review period will take place the end of July through August, with awards being announced by September of 2026. If there is any delay or adjustment, we will of course be sure to let you know.
Thanks, Megan. I'm going to turn it over to Shelley to give us a sense of post-award, what we should expect.
Yes. So not only does this opportunity come with funding, but there's also a clear set of expectations. And this structure is really designed not only for accountability, but to just make sure that there's strong implementation and continuous improvement across all funded programs. And so if you're awarded, grantees should expect to be prepared for standardized reporting. And you'll see in the deck that there's quarterly programmatic reporting that's expected, but then there's also financial reporting that will be expected monthly. And then finally, an annual cumulative report and site visits. So those will all be an expectation along with post-award. The council's also indicated that as reporting is standardized and it's through their grant management system, they'll use that to collect quarterly and monthly reports, for the programmatic and for the fiscal. But our goal as the grant manager is to make sure that we're supporting both accountability and learning. So not just documentation, but get a clear picture of your progress, your implementation, and the impact that you all are making. So site visits. Site visits are a part of this post-award, and the visits include review of your records, observation of your programming, and we will be responsible for overseeing that fiscal and programmatic reporting and then conducting the site visits. So it will be staff from our organization, from United Way, that will be conducting the site visits. And we hope that you understand that the reporting and the site visits are not punitive, but this is more in partnership and making sure that the impact to the community is up to standard as you would love it, and we would have it as well. And another important feature of this opportunity is it's not just a funding stream, as we said, but it comes with capacity building training, and that's intended to help organizations become more self-sustaining over time. So topics include performance evaluation, performance data, and evaluation, financial management for nonprofits, project management, AI for nonprofits. And with that, we want to make sure that you have this funding, you're well equipped and supported to do reporting, you're well equipped and expect us to come in for site visits, but also that you're building capacity for your organization so that this work is sustainable over time.
Great, thanks,
And with
Shelley.
that, we can move over to questions.
Yeah, I just wanted to flag. So the Social Equity Council had already put together a frequently asked questions document that has been available on our R2 webpage that Megan mentioned before. For additional questions, and we have already received a couple that I'll just quickly go through, but we are asking any that get discussed today, we will document and add to the list, and that if you can send us any additional questions you have by the 19th so that we can get those answered in the list and available to everybody. So just really quickly, and then we'll open it up for general questions. The ones that we received so far is around questions around resubmissions or making amendments to your application once it is submitted. And the council has confirmed that that is not allowed. So So as Megan mentioned, draft your responses and submit once you really feel ready, that you have the best application to put forward. The next is a timeline for completing the application submission. If you're notified by us that you're missing an attachment, and the council has allowed a 48-hour window from the point that we email you to get that back. So as applications are submitted, Megan feverishly is reviewing everything, and she cares so deeply. She gets really worried when if someone submits something and there's something missing. So we will follow up. Again, that will not be about quality of narrative answers. This will really be about, is something missing that was required, and you will have 48 hours to submit that. And then again, I already referenced this, but we'll say it again, is that around eligibility, if you're headquartered outside of the designated area, but operating within it. And yes, you can have a headquarter that's not in East Haven, New Haven, or West Haven, but you do need to be clear what space you're using, and document that partnership if you are not renting or owning that space. So Q&A, let's do it. This is the fun part. The other stuff, you guys are like, we read this, we know. But let's see what questions you guys have so that you can kind of go off and start thinking about what you want to submit for.
All right, so pulling the first few from the chat, the first one was asking, to be clear, are we excluded if we are less than 3 years old?
Correct. You need to have 3 years of experience in the DIA area.
The second question was if they could get a copy of the PowerPoint after this presentation.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Everything will be posted on our webpage. The audio recording, all the materials. Make sure you have everything you need.
Someone asked, are capital projects allowed under the re-entry category or only under economic development?
Only under economic development. And they need to be shovel ready, have to be completed by the end of the 3-year grant timeframe.
Someone asked, for youth initiatives, is there a preference for ages of youth?
Shelley, you want to take that one?
There is not a preference for ages of youth. So if you have a youth program, we invite you to apply.
And then a follow-up to that question was if there was a preference for the number of youth impacted versus intensity of services. I'm not sure if the folks who asked that would want to clarify that or not.
I think I get the question, although definitely feel free to come up if you want to go into it. I would say that is not specified by the council or through United Way. I think, again, going back to you all are the experts,
Right.
You would just in your application want to be able to demonstrate like what's the need. So if you're proposing, right, serving fewer people but having a really deep impact, I think that you'll need to be able to just say like, what is the outcome that what are outcomes that you believe you will be able to achieve and why you think that is needed for that specific community.
Someone else asked about more information on the letters of support. Who do you want them from and what do they need to indicate?
So I can't answer that for you. I think everybody's application, their letters of support may look different, right? Depending on what you're applying for. I mean, ultimately you want to have letters that could either just reinforce confidence in your organization or program, or even as an agency, right? So I think that there's already questions in the application process that's going to get at, your ability to manage grants and things of that nature. But if you wanted to include a letter of support from a funder or somebody else that would be able to confirm again, their confidence in you as an applicant, that's okay too. I think, again, it's not a one size fits all answer.
Thank you, Kelly. The next question is there a scoring rubric?
There will be a scoring rubric. We have not received that we haven't received that yet from the council.
Correct. And so as of now, it is not clear if that rubric will be made available ahead of time. But we did get confirmation that everything being scored on is asked in the application, right? So there's no surprises on that. But we will absolutely follow up with everybody once we receive it and know if we're able to share that publicly.
The next question was, are they excluded if they do not have 2 years of CPA prepared financial statements?
Correct. You do need to include 2 years of CPA financial statements.
The next question was about clarification on determining which tier that they should fit into.
So I would, again, I'm sorry, there's like not a one size fits all on this. I mean, you want to be able to look at your program budget and also what you're able to share in terms of your agency's ability to manage that size grant. So I you know, if you've never managed $100,000 before, as I said, like, it doesn't preclude you from applying for it, but I do think that reviewers are going to be asked to take into consideration the costs and the agency's documented ability to manage said costs.
Another thing to note on that is that in the application, we do ask your preferred tier and then a tier that you would be okay with accepting and operating within should you not be selected for your preferred tier. So just as a note, be keeping in mind what you might be comfortable and able to operate with should you not be selected for that main tier.
Yeah, and I'll just say that gives us the ability behind the scenes without having to like reach out to everyone while the reviewing and scoring is happening to see what flexibility you have. And right, we've all seen where we say we need 100,000, a funder comes back and says, well, can you do something with 25? And we want to kind of have a sense out the gate where people would be able to still meaningfully move forward if they were not selected with their first choice.
The next question is this grant intended, to support existing programs, new initiatives, or both?
Both, but again, if your program doesn't have 3 years of experience and outcomes documented, you will need to be able to still show how you as an agency have done that work and have seen outcomes similar to just, again, reinforce the comfort level. And I think that that's an example of where, when you're thinking about letters of support, if it is a newer program that doesn't have 3 years, like getting letters of support from key partners might be helpful.
All right, so if they have been active outside of the New Haven regions and are conducting an expansion into New Haven, but are partnered with an organization that has been active for 3 years in New Haven, are they eligible, or would their partner be the one to submit the application?
So the agency applying has to have 3 years of experience in one of the DEIA towns. So I think that answers the first part. If there is a partnership happening, which we're United Way, we totally support collaboration and partnership. If that other agency meets all of the requirements, could be the lead applicant, and then work with others. I will say that the way it's written now, both in the NOFO and the FAQs, is that the the primary applicant, unless you're a fiscal sponsor, like it's a fiscal sponsorship situation, really needs to be the primary provider of the services. You may have others that are kind of adding supplemental pieces, but really what I'm saying on that is like, you can't have a nonprofit apply and then just subcontract the whole thing to you to do the service. They are looking to see that the primary applicant is providing services, a good chunk of the services.
The next question that we have is more education or youth initiative focused. So it was asked if they could use the funding to expand the NHTI initiative to support and develop the after school program by hiring youth as mentors and development.
To that, I will say academic mentorship, tutoring, programming is supported through this application. I can't speak specifically to expanding a particular initiative such as NHTI, but I will say that academic tutoring and mentorship is supported through this opportunity.
So another question was discussing how a partnership should be done. So I think we've touched on the main points, but just want to make sure if there was anything else you wanted to add about that, if anything. A partnership in the application.
I'm sorry, Megan, one more time.
Another question was asked about, can you discuss how a partnership should be done within the application? I think we kind of just touched on that, but I wanted to just make sure before we moved on that if there was anything else you wanted to add.
Nothing that I would add. I do think we will pose the question to the council to make sure that there's any clear guidance tied to how much can you subcontract to somebody else, or is there any guidelines on that? And so when the final FAQ document is posted next week, please feel free to look. If you're thinking about having a partnership application where you're going to subcontract, please go to that document and read what the final guidance is from the council.
The next question is, what is the cap age for youth? Correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe that there is one. Youth is defined by the community-based organization.
That is correct.
Do public schools qualify for the grant?
So the organization needs to be a 501c3 nonprofit. That's the guidance that we have received from the council.
Another question, is this for daycare homes also? So again, the entity applying should be a 501c entity. If our organization serves different populations in different programs, would we be eligible if the program we are applying for meets the 90% people from the required area?
Yes. I think if I understand
Yes.
the question, yes. If the program that you are applying for, if the R2 funds, whatever the R2 funds are paying for, that program needs to serve 90%, at least 90% of its participants from the 3 towns.
The next question is a bit more of a technical one about what are the specific thresholds for requiring full CPA financial audit versus a formal CPA review?
Great question that we will bring back to the council and have in the FAQ document.
If your organization provides statewide services, are you able to apply for funding in each region where you provide services, or is it limited to submitting an application for one?
You can submit one application per region.
As long as you have 3 or more years of providing programming in that region.
Is there a committee reviewing the applications, SEC, United Way of Greater New Haven? Wonderful question. So there will be a committee of reviewers. We are in the process of doing that recruitment now, and then we will make our final recommendations to the council, who has ultimate authority over the final funding. Will there be future rounds if we don't currently meet the eligibility, but will in the future?
We're hopeful, right? Like, the council has definitely indicated, a desire to be able to continue, investing in the communities. There is not one specific, like, ready to launch. But to be clear, for this specific round of R2, there will not be another opportunity.
Regarding the tiers, do we need to have 2 budgets and 2 narratives?
Don't understand.
Can the person who asked that come
Yeah.
off mute and specify? I mean, you need an organizational budget and then the program budget, but I'm not sure because you can only
No.
select for one tier. You do not need one for the backup tier, if that's the question.
No, so when you said we choose a tier
Mhm.
for the project we want in the region, but we also have to choose a second tier just in case we don't get it. If we choose a second tier, it pays, well, the funding is less. So do we have to create a second budget for that tier as well?
Not as part of the application process, no. I do think if selected, once you get to contracting, you'll need to be prepared for that updated budget, but not for the application process.
How many total grants will be awarded during R2?
That varies by priority area.
Yes.
But 18 total
18, yeah.
For the region across the 3 priorities and the tiers.
Where in the NOFO does it say that 90% being served have to come from East Haven, West Haven, and New Haven?
What page? Great question. I'm trying to look through it now. So sorry guys, I'm sharing my screen, so it's hard for me to look. It would definitely be, it should be under the eligibility section. If it's not, it is in the FAQ document though.
That is,
It's in the, yeah.
is
And
in the
although it
FAQs.
doesn't specifically say 90%, it says primarily, but
Yep, and then I think so. Apologies. Yes, then that question to like, please define what primarily means, and so it's
Yeah.
in the
it's
FAQ
in the
from the
FAQ.
council.
Okay, regarding the 10% administrative indirect cost cap, what specific expense types does the council explicitly define as administrative versus direct program cost?
So I think again, that could vary because the sizes of nonprofits, right? You might have someone like your executive director providing case management, right? That is possible. It's really about, and too, like they're depending on the program type, rent may be a part of that. But if you're looking at finance, if you're looking at, I'm trying to think of some other examples, like utilities for the site. Yeah, those are a few that immediately come to mind, but we can definitely follow up to get some explicit categories from the council.
And just another note on that, so we'll follow up with the council, but there are a couple of, as I mentioned before, addendums on our website that should have more information, if not at least an example of different projects, so that might also be helpful to take a look at. Okay. If the grant program will serve youth from the 3 towns 90% or more, and the agency's main office is in New Haven, but the program is located in North Haven, is this allowable, or does the program location need to be in one of the 3 towns?
the way it's written now is the program location has to be in one of the 3 towns. I am curious though,
Yeah.
though, like what program is being provided that you're transporting people from the 3 towns to another town. It could be that there's a component of your program that has like hands-on learning or work, internship, and that is occurring somewhere else. I think there could be a case made for that, but your primary day-to-day work would need to be happening in one of the 3 towns.
At least as of this second, that is the last question that I see in the chat.
Are there any others? Feel free to raise your hand.
Come off mute or drop it in the chat.
Okay.
Let me screen for a second.
There's one more. Can you provide where in the documents the 90% requirement is? So that is in the FAQ document.
I'm looking through their FAQ. I don't know that it says, I'm not able to find it right now specifically, but we will get that information. That is information and guidance that has come directly from the council. And so it is not a requirement that United Way has implemented, but we'll make sure that we note that in the updated FAQ.
And just so everyone knows, I'm sorry we didn't start with this, but the council, for anyone who was part of the very first time they put out these resources, there was a lot of feedback from many sources about the variation across regions. And so coming out this time, the council, in an attempt to be like fair and equitable, really has been very prescriptive in terms of like the question, the NOFO itself, the questions being asked. We have pretty much zero wiggle room to add anything because the council wanted to make sure that across regions that people were being held to the same standard. So just wanted to reinforce kind of what Shelley was saying about it didn't come from us. Not to say I don't support all of the things being proposed, but it is part of the council's strategy to be fair and equitable across regions, regardless of the grant manager. Yeah, Robin?
So just to dig into that a little bit more. So the populations that we serve, they may feel like they are New Haven based or East Haven or West Haven, but they may be living in a halfway house someplace else, or, what is going to be the proof? Is it going to be their address when they applied? Or you don't know that?
Yeah, so I mean, the example actually that we received was sort of was reversed, where I'm technically from a different town, but I'm living in a halfway house in one of the 3 towns. That person would be eligible. So you do need to be living in one of the 3 towns at the point of starting the program.
Great, that's helpful.
Yeah.
There's a question about how the grant funds are distributed.
So they are going, so the contract or the grant that you guys will have will be with United Way of Greater New Haven. We are waiting for more information on if it is a full cost reimbursement model or if there are any upfront resources. That's still yet to be determined. For anyone who's worked with us before, we want to get you guys some money to get started if that's needed. But many state contracts are cost reimbursement. So we'll see what we can do on that front. Anything else? Okay. Well, we definitely have some follow-up questions to bring back to the council. So, and if anyone has any other questions, please get those to us by the 19th. And then check our website early next week, and we will have the updated FAQ document up and ready to go. Oh, yeah. Tamisha?
Thank you
Hi.
all.
I just wanted to share, if I could, that, you know, having to find funding to do this work is very difficult for many nonprofits, and it makes the job harder when that's the case. If you guys could go back and speak with the council and just let them know that that is an equity issue that they have to address, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Sorry, Tamisha, I just want to make sure I heard the beginning. That was around the cost reimbursement versus upfront costs? Yeah,
Correct, yes.
Okay. You got it.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, well, thanks, everyone. It's good to see some familiar faces. Have a good rest of your day.
Enjoy
Thank
the
you all.
sunshine. Bye all.